Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the Making Progress channel. Today's video is about how to defeat your insecurity. Ooh, deep. This is under the category of relationships and dating. It's really just personal development, but it impacts relationships and dating a ton if you get this right or if you never attempt to get on this. And it's video number 31, so welcome back. 7 things to talk about today. First is we want to define what insecurity means in this context. We're going to talk about what the core of insecurity really is. 4 tips to combat insecurity, separately addressed, and the future of insecurity is what this channel do or be without future prediction. So, defining insecurity, ChatGPT tells me insecurity is a feeling or state of self-doubt, uncertainty, or anxiety about oneself, stemming from a lack of confidence in one's worth, abilities, or place in social and relational contexts. Very good definition. And the second additional addendum to that definition is insecurity can manifest in various ways, such as fear of judgment, a need for validation, sensitivity to criticism, or a tendency to compare oneself unfavorably to others. It can be influenced by past experiences, societal standards, relationships, and internal belief systems. Addressing and understanding the root causes of insecurity can be beneficial in fostering self-awareness and personal growth. So if you're here for self-awareness and personal growth, then hey, let's talk about insecurity and try to get it sorted. Before we open up into ways to improve your insecurity, or improve your security, I guess, is let's just real world simplify things and talk about what the real core, technical language aside, of insecurity is. To me, it means 2 big things. Big thing 1 is that you're not okay with what and who you are. You're not okay with it. You might even wish you were different in many capacities. That's very often the case. You might even wish that you were someone else. Like it's a pretty standard trope in 80s middle school and high school movies for the protagonist to look at the popular girl and wish she was her. They're totally uncontroversial, very common. Some people might have distinct things in mind that they would change about themselves, like, oh, it's my nose. If I could just change my nose, everything would be perfect. And other folks have a general feeling of like, this ain't it. Whatever this is, whatever I got, this ain't it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling my swag. And the second big part of what insecurity is to me is the first part is you're not okay with who you are. The second part is you don't want others to find out how not okay you really are. For that reason, people that are insecure often avoid or reduce social interaction. They might show up and social interact, but speak very little. Or they might heavily filter their outputs. They might do quite a bit of speaking, but it's very curated, and that's honestly a pain in the ass to do because it's kind of like you're at a job interview all the time and people can pick up on that. People can tell you're anxious, but about as anxious as you'd be at a job interview, curating everything you're saying. There's an inherent amount of anxiety and nervousness and tension with that, and people can tell. And if you happen to be male and trying to attract the opposite sex, women are almost categorically disgusted by feelings of anxiety in men and feelings of incompetence, and they whiff that, they sniff that out real quick. So you can't run from that shit. And oftentimes, to the physical side, people will wear clothing that literally hides their insecurities, if their insecurities are body related, which in many cases they are. So it's kind of the trope of the fat girl in the sweatsuit. Why is she wearing sweats all the time? Well, because she wants to kind of erase or mark her body for you visually. Because if she knew you could see her outlines and curves, she would feel like that's not something she wants to show off. So you're not okay with who and what you are, and you don't want others to find out that you're not okay, is to me the 2 core elements of insecurity, especially in young folks growing up. And that's kind of who this talk is sort of tailored for. And you don't have to be young, by the way. You can try to work on your level of insecurity anytime. There's no such thing as too late. So we have 4 methods that I can at least think of, and I'm sure there are others. Please feel free to type them out in the comments. There are 4 methods to combating insecurity that I know work very well. They don't work for everyone, but they work for very many people. some combination of these can really, really improve your sense of self-worth. But as you'll see, some of them require some time and some commitment and some dedication. But listen, if you're experiencing a low sense of self-efficacy, a high sense of insecurity, to you, the trade-off of, well, put in some years into this difficult thing, but on the other side, you'll be much less insecure, maybe not at all insecure, starts to look like an upside. It starts to look like a good trade-off. Because imagine if you were, just to take a really crazy approach to this, imagine you were living like North Korea, total hell, prison dictatorship, and you had it on good word, like for real. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a lie. That if you just worked extra hard at something and just dedicated your life to it for 5 years, you'd be free. You just go South Korea and you'd have a wonderful, perfect life like every citizen of South Korea has compared to their counterpart in the North. You might be like, yep, okay, count me in, let's do it. Because some of the stuff that I'm going to share is maybe not tough, but it takes dedication. And you may be watching this and saying, yeah, God damn it, fuck that. I wanted something quick. Well, if you just want something quick, that means your insecurity is not bad enough and you're probably fine. But if you're really insecure, you probably hate it and you're probably profoundly aware of it at every level. It seeps through you like some kind of infection and you want it gone. And these tips can help you get rid of it, hugely reduce it until it's something you can flick across the table and it's no big deal for you at all. Of course, I'm going to be speaking a lot from personal experience because I've kind of done all these things, and they helped tremendously. So, number one way to combat insecurity is by improving yourself. Strange. A lot of people would start the conversation with working on your mental states and talking to friends and talking to a therapist. And that's a fine place to start. But I would say a huge medicine to insecurity is improving yourself. And the other really good thing about that improving yourself process is it's good for kind of every other part of your life and mental state. It's almost never the wrong answer. And if on our way to success of every kind, which is what self-improvement codes for, we can also massively reduce insecurity, hey, shit, that's a huge, huge bonus. So this is a really, really big option here, big choice. And the trick here is just really about becoming competent, very competent, at just about anything. Now, ideally, it's the thing you're insecure about. If you're insecure about how poor you are, you make some money. If you're insecure about your fashion choices, you invest in understanding and knowledge of fashion, buy the right clothes or whatever that means, and then voila, you got what you got. But the really good news is that the thing that you improve yourself on doesn't need to be directly related to your insecurity, because there's a huge transfer effect, especially if your ability to get good at something really starts to become quite excessive. So for example, if you have someone who's really insecure around women, but then they manage to release some debut albums and all of a sudden they're getting picked up by big record labels. All of a sudden the world loves them. All of a sudden they're traveling around, selling out 50,000 attendee concerts and making millions of dollars. The next time they talk to a woman and remember that they used to be insecure around women, that it might be such a distant memory from their experience of constantly being told and being shown in every conceivable way that they are a winner. They are the most sought after person. Now that's obviously an extreme example, but that spillover effect has tangible benefits even at lower levels. When you get good at anything, the confidence can start to change your view of yourself even slowly. So if you are typically shy with women, for example, but you get really good at your tech job and then really, really good at your tech job, then you start to develop a feeling of confidence somewhere, a feeling of competence, a feeling of struggling against the odds and winning multiple times. That sensation of being good at stuff has a transfer effect. And all of a sudden, when you're doing things that are very scary, like trying to talk to women, you have a little bit of a support, a bit of a rest, a bit of a low chair to sit onto. And that is the chair built up by the stacks of your prior accomplishments in something else. Like if you're a really, really good software developer and you go on a date with someone and it's really intimidating because they're female and you try and talk to them, somewhere in the back of your head, you got to remind yourself, like, you're really good at stuff. Really good. And you're really smart. And other people think you're really smart. And they pay you lots of money to hang around and give your software solutions to their problems. And so anytime you feel insecure around this person that you're on a date with and you're having trouble getting the words out, your sweat dripping everywhere, you can loop back around to one of two things. If you don't have anything to rest on because you haven't accomplished much, because you haven't improved yourself much, just regular old you, whatever God intended, God plus public school system equals me. If you get really insecure feelings, there's nothing to rest on. There's nothing to rely on to pull you out. You're drowning in insecurity. There's nothing to grab onto. But if you happen to be a highly successful business person or happen to be a nationally ranked BMX racer or a chess champion at the local level, or you started a barbershop quartet and you and your 4 friends of yours or 3 friends of yours have sung for some people that didn't hate you, all of a sudden your mind might come back to that in the middle of this terrible, terrible date. And you really realize, oh, yeah, I've done things. I've got something. There's something to me that's worthwhile. And it gets much more intense as you cultivate improvement and really watch yourself expand and grow and get really, really good. The default analysis that your brain engages in switches from I'm bad at stuff and I'm incompetent, as mostly its running time, to some mix of I'm bad at stuff and incompetent, and man, I'm really good at some stuff and quite competent. And then over time, because you invest yourself very heavily in improving yourself and you watch yourself improve, your experience becomes a lot of, man, I'm really good at stuff. Like I just seem to be kind of the default is that I'm improving and I'm good at stuff. And then when you get to a challenging situation, the ultimate of which is the sit down across each other date, that doesn't seem as intimidating anymore. It doesn't seem like you go in your bag of tricks and you got nothing. You go in your bag of tricks and it's like, you're the fucking man and tons of stuff. And you're like, oh, so I am. And it changes the dynamic a ton. And again, women especially can feel that dynamic from your facial expressions, from your tone of voice, from your body postures, from the things you say. They don't have to explicitly know you're good at stuff. But when you're good at stuff and you really feel it yourself, when you've really improved yourself to become something you're kind of proud of in some capacity, that pride will naturally show through no matter what. It's very difficult to hide. And then a lot of women will be like, I don't know what it is about him. There's something about him. He knows something I don't. He's got seemingly some kind of anchor to some value I can't really see with my own eyes. And it's kind of mysterious. It kind of interests me versus the opposite of this person clearly thinks very poorly of themselves. And I'll spare him the time wasting his time dating someone because if he's not good enough to be out in the world, fuck what I date him for. I'll just see myself out. Very, very big difference. So there's another thing that happens here. It's not just you getting good at stuff for your own soul, though that is a very, very big part. It's also that as you get locally good, even if it's in a very small comparator group of other people trying to get good at this thing, let's say how well you play your instrument in jazz club or whatever Scott the video guy used to do when he had no friends back in the day. And the folks in that group at some point start to look up to you. They start to like you. They start to desire you. And that social dynamic, which almost always happens if you start getting good at stuff, people in that group will notice. If you become like a regional chess champion, seems like no one gives a shit, but all the other chess champions in the region, they know who you are. And they got mad props for you because you're fucking better than them. And there could be tens or hundreds of them that know you. And when they interact with you, you can tell that people come up, ask you questions. People look at you from the side of the room and then their eyes shift away real quick. You're like, so it is. I'm a little master of my own domain here. No big deal. And that social dynamic of other people recognizing that you have gotten better, that you are ascending the various hierarchies which you occupy, the fact that you note that they're recognizing it can add to the direct experience of elevated competency. So not only are you becoming better at stuff and you know you're better, But other people around you have started to notice and have said things or acted in ways that kind of tip the hat to your being better. That's so powerful because remember, insecurity is a very internal thing to how you feel about yourself, but it's also a very external thing about how you think other people appraise you. If you think you ain't shit and you can tell other people think you ain't shit, I don't know how the fuck you're supposed to pretend you're good at stuff, which is why I didn't give the advice of go to psychotherapy first. That's later. Okay, not a lot. There's something to do in therapy, but not a lot. You can't talk yourself into believing in yourself. Not all the time. But if you become better at something and start to really get better at it, and other people around you are giving you clues and hints, and sometimes very direct affirmations of the fact that you are better, it starts to heal that insecurity quite a bit. It starts to give you, I'll tell you exactly what it is, it starts to give your brain a very different type of message than it's used to getting. And because your brain receives messages from the outside and receives messages from the inside, its own data processing, and it mixes those into the stream of thought that you experience all the time. When internally, you know you're getting good at stuff, and externally, other people are like, dude, you're the man. I saw your last, whatever the fuck you did, your last Lego building that you built. It was a dream, unreal. That combination starts to tell your brain a different story. And it's going to take weeks and months and years for that story to really sink in. But when it does, your brain is going to have hazy memories, maybe quite clear memories of back when you used to feel like a piece of shit all the time, and now replace them with experiences in which you're like, yeah, I know things. I can do things. I am capable. Directly am capable in these things. And also everyone kind of makes me feel my swag all the time. You know, people get compliments like, oh, stop. Oh, no, which is cool. It's a very polite thing to do. But almost all those people, if they're truly insecure, they get home and they relive those compliments in their head. Well, at least they should. That's really good therapy. I can't believe Kelsey said that my tie looked nice. I have been trying to get this fashion thing right for months, and finally somebody noticed. And it just in your head, it's in your head, it's in your head. And it's elevating your opinion of yourself, which is exactly what we want. It is blowing up your ego, which is exactly what we want. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but when you say someone has a big ego, that's actually the wrong parlance. Almost everyone who acts like they have a big ego actually has a very small, very fragile ego they're trying to protect. When people have a fuckload of swag, they don't come off like they have big egos. They just come off like they don't give a fuck. Because they don't. Because they got nothing on the line. Because they know they're awesome. There is a big difference between knowing you're a piece of shit and knowing you're awesome. But as you accomplish more and more and improve yourself in any way, really, get into better shape, pick up a hobby, do amazing things at work, et cetera, et cetera. The list is endless. It's almost anything you do in life you could do better. As you become more competent, you start to elevate up that internal ranking of how you feel about yourself. You might start off as a 1, and after a few years, you're a 6. Hey, 6 is way better than 1. Maybe there are other things we can do to kick that number up, your own number of how much of your own swag do you feel. Which brings us to point number 2. Another way to massively increase your sense of self-worth and to massively reduce your sense of insecurity, especially if you are male. So let's be honest, 90 trillion% of the people that listen to this shit on YouTube are men. Sup, fellas? If you know a woman in your life, you know what I'm saying, tell her what's up, because there's probably not a lot of them hoes. Haha, JK. Combating insecurity. Method number 2 is to engage in literal combat. I don't mean to tell you to go to Walmart and start throwing punches at people. That's a bad idea. Just consider training in kickboxing, aka Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, MMA, judo, any combat sport that actually transfers to real fighting and has a live component where you're not just practicing katas and forms, but you actually go within a rule set, get to fight each other. Training in those sports can radically heal insecurity by letting you do 2 things, experience 2 things. One is get beat up, which is incredibly cathartic and super therapeutic. And 2 is letting you beat up other people. which is also incredibly cathartic and therapeutic. It's just nice to do it when you've both signed a contract that it's all good to go. So don't go fighting people randomly in public. Why? Why combat, Dr. Mike? It sounds odd. You're a jiu-jitsu guy. Of course you'd say this. Here's the thing. Very good reasons for this. A ton of specifically male insecurity, tons of it, sometimes most of it, in my experience, comes from the fear of being beat up by other males. It's oftentimes not a conscious fear. It's a subconscious fear. But it's a real, real thing. You ever been around football players before, D1 or pro football players? They're all really tall and really big and really confident. Your fucking asshole tightens up for sure. Mine does. Well, then it loosens considerably for what's about to happen next, which is why I pay them to be around me. Anyway, guys, neither here nor there. You're like, oh shit. Why are you like that? Football players characteristically have almost zero rates of violence. They typically just hit each other on the field. No big deal. It's primal. It's guttural. It's somewhere deep in that filth muck of ape-like evolution of primates that we got that shit from. It's a real, real thing. Now, mostly you fear things that you have not experienced. And once you have experienced them, a lot of the extra baggage of fear of how terrible this thing is going to be goes away. So one thing you'll do if you join, let's say, a jiu-jitsu gym, for the first 6 months to a year, almost everyone's going to kick your ass. And that's amazing because you are going to be so attached to the idea of your own infallibility and supremacy in a fight. Of course you're attached to it. Of course you're clutching it like rich people clutch pearls because it's so goddamn fragile, this idea. You're hiding the pearl with your hands. And that pearl is, I might get fucked up. In the first year in jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or anything else for that matter, you're going to get that ass beat. And the first day it happens to you, you're going to feel like something was taken from you that you can never get back. In the second, you're going to feel like it was taken again. And in the third, you're going to have some hope and it's still going to fuck you up and you're going to get beat up again and again and again. And guess what happens after a few days, weeks, and definitely months of getting that ass beat regularly? How are you doing physically? You got some cool scars or some fucking red shit on your face. Your ears might look kind of doped out a little bit. Okay. You might get hurt now and again. Not a big deal. Usually heal up just fine. Most people don't get hurt severely in jiu-jitsu anyway. Nobody at the gym talks shit about how bad you are because everyone's there for the same reason and everyone started terrible and no one cares if you're good for a white belt. So that's all no big deal. So after months of getting that ass beat the fuck up, what do you have? I'll tell you exactly what you have is a beautiful realization. You have lost nothing except the irrational fear of getting beat up. I've gotten beat up in jiu-jitsu and otherwise, but a lot more in jiu-jitsu. It's just nobody fights that much in real life. I've gotten beat up so much that if I ever get scared of another male out in the real world, I just remind myself one simple thing. What's the worst thing he's going to do to me? I've already been killed in practice before. I've been choked unconscious. I've tapped to submissions. I'm already dead. Nothing, especially like a crazy homeless person out in the middle of nowhere or fucking gas stations trying to get all weird with you. Very insecure situation. What is he going to show me that the black belt at my gym hasn't? Oh, am I going to fall on the ground? Been there. Am I going to get my face pushed across concrete? You ever had your face pushed across a gi? Same thing. Arguably concrete's more pleasant. And in that situation, you've already been beaten down. This idea that you have of yourself as this thing of value that's incredibly fragile and you have to protect, thus the insecurity, that thing of value, your ability to be a grown man and stand up for yourself, just gets fucking punched right the fuck down and beaten to death, and then people step on it. It's gone. Ego death is another term for this, and it's fucking real. You get that ass beat a lot in practice, you got nothing else. That's it. You're done. And then you feel oddly liberated. Every time you go to fight other people in jiu-jitsu from then on, once you accept the fact that you can lose and it's okay, you're not scared anymore. And then someone, I don't know, like you, even if you're not good at jiu-jitsu yet, you go to a party with friends and some guy's like, hey, back up. What? You go, no. And he's like, fuck, I'm going to fuck you up. You're like, begin anytime you want. You just say it with a fucking stone cold face like that. A lot of people are like, I'm not really going to, seems like you're not scared of me. Maybe you know something I don't. Never mind. And sometimes a fight breaks out. And then what? Who gives a shit? He's going to beat you up. You're going to get up all pulped up and people are like, oh my God, you okay? You're like, yeah. And then that guy's like, Jesus Christ, this person has been beaten up before. And clearly it doesn't matter. Forget what the other people think. For your soul, it's a big, big deal to get that ego death of getting just stomped to shit. But that's just the beginning. Just with that, you get massive, massive therapy. Then you start to get better and you start to beat up the occasional person, beat them on points, submit them, etc. In stand-up, get a couple nice hits on them that they weren't expecting. And then later on, as you do this for months and years, you start winning a higher and higher and higher fraction of all of the matches that you do. And eventually, let's say you make it all the way to black belt, you're better than almost everyone you'll ever meet in a fight, straight up. Like, you know, some guy in an airplane is like, hey, get out of my way. You're going to look him up and down and you're going to be like, that guy's going to gas out in 3 seconds. If I fight him, fuck that guy. I haven't seen him in practice. There's a guy at my gym who does ADCC trials and he's been to ADCCs before and I've taken him to points. What the fuck is this guy going to do to me? Nothing. And jiu-jitsu and MMA and kickboxing are so technical and so dependent. Your ability is so dependent on how much time you invest. You simply invest the time. You can be stick thin, not be very strong, but be ultra technical and fuck up most of the people you ever meet. And I'll tell you this, the knowledge, at least as a scientifically aligned person, I say the high probability that you can beat up anyone you see or most people you see, it heals you. Every day that you are alive with that knowledge, you get less and less insecure. It's a big, big, big deal. And becoming secure in your combat abilities can bleed over into your general security in yourself, your sense of self, a ton. For no other reason than the fact that, especially for males, combat ability and combat experience is so goddamn tied to your sense of self-worth and your sense of inner security. Because at the end of the day, one of the sociological benefits of with your facial expressions, your body movements, and how you talk, projecting a higher or lower level of insecurity, one of the benefits to that is everyone who you are addressing, let's say females, they have very well calibrated detectors based on your activity that estimate how many male-on-male incidents of violence have you won versus lost. If you're all fucking cocky about the shit, like, hey man, fuck these hoes, it seems to me that you have won most of your fights. Because if you lose a lot of fights, you end up having this demeanor of, well, insecurity, because you know you're not secure, because you've lost most of your fights. But that's a normal number of fights, way before the level of, I don't have a sense of security anymore because I've lost so many fights, I don't give a fuck anymore. That's that Eminem shit. That's later. That takes training. You can't do that in real life. Most people in uncivilized or less civilized hunter-gatherer societies probably don't rack up the number of lifetime male-on-male fights that you would in about a month of jiu-jitsu. And then so if you lose more fights than you win, people can tell that you're insecure. That's one of the number one values of the ability to transmit insecurity through how you talk, through how you look. And people can pick up on it. And if you start, first of all, bashing yourself into oblivion by people better than you, you lose a lot of those back and forth mechanisms and you kind of turn cold. So people no longer get the impression talking to you that you're a fucking pussy and you get beat up all the time. They get the impression of talking to you that you're kind of like out of the loop entirely. You don't seem to be affected by dominance hierarchies because you've sunk to that low level of who gives a shit? I'll just get beat up again. Fuck it, I don't care. I've gotten beat up 10 trillion times. It's like the farmer digging dirt that's got nothing. And the invading soldier's like, hey, you better do this. And the farmer's like, fuck you, kill me. I don't give a fuck. I'm already dead. And at some point the soldier's like, God damn it. I got nothing on this guy. Like, yes, I can shoot him, but he seems to be in agreement with that already. You get to that. And then after months and months and months, you start crawling out of that and it's all upsides. When you get to that point, the way you discuss things, the way you position your body, the way your face looks, the way you transition your vocal patterns start to become of someone that has won lots of fights. If you meet MMA champions, really good jiu-jitsu people, really good kickboxers in real life, it's a little bit of a trip sometimes because they come generally in two varieties. One is super cool people that are just, you can't tell them apart from anyone, but they sure shit don't seem insecure. They're just cool and there's no weird like alpha swag about them. Or it's like way too much alpha swag and you're like, holy fuck, they shake your hand like this. And they look you in the eyes and you're like, I can't look that person in the eyes, man. They're lasering me. You do that to women, that's it. You're cooking them. They're done. You're the fucking alpha. That's it. That shit can be so potentiated by physical combat training. It's a humongous asset. So if you're at a place in your life where you've tried a few things to raise your insecurity, to reduce your insecurity, to become more self-confident, they just haven't really worked. It might not be up your alley to do this fighting shit, but if it's remotely up your alley, it's worth it. Now, there's a big disclaimer I don't even have written on the reminder slides for this. It has to be a sport with combat transfer to real combat. BJJ, wrestling, MMA, judo, kickboxing. Don't get in the comments and say Lethway or some shit. That's about it. A few other ones here and there. If you get into McDojo karate, taekwondo, somewhere deep down inside, you'll probably know you can't actually beat people up because these are combat and effective martial arts and you don't have any experience in combat. You just do the forms and katas and then people pretend to spar and then you go home. You got to take some fucking hits to the face or some fucking chokes or some shit so that you can get in with another person who's fighting for their life, trying to kill you, quote unquote, and you are too. That is a very special place. It's a very ancestral, very primal place. And if you get beat up by that, it heals you. And if you end up beating people up more in that situation, it goes beyond healing into supremacy. And then you kind of feel like fucking awesome all the time. And if you get into situations where you're made to feel insecure temporarily, it's real easy to get your way back out of that because you're like, man, fuck this. Give a fuck. So what? And then you can treat people like equals and they never really pick up on the fact that you think you're less than because you don't. Because at the end of the day, those are all mortal fucking people. And two things can happen. One, you can fight them and they can beat you up, but you don't care because you've lost before. Or two, you can fight them and you can beat them up and then you're the fucking man. It's only two ways about it. The only way you get scared and puss out is if you haven't been in enough fights and you've lost the fights you've been in or just been intimidated out of fights that you really fear this grand, terrible thing is going to happen. Yeah, in real street fights when people are trying to stab you, that fear is good because it's fight or flight. But we're talking mostly about like you're at a restaurant and there's a slightly bigger person sitting over there and the girl across from you is like, so what are you into? And you're like, oh God, why am I even here with her? He should be with her. She's so pretty and he's so great. Oh, I'm a loser. In those situations, yeah, you could use a little bit of that swag. It's a huge deal, huge deal, huge deal. Strategy number 3 to combat insecurity is to have conversations with therapists and or conversations with friends. A therapist has a unique ability that they're trained in, by the way, formally of many years in school and practice, where they can expose many of your insecurities to you. So a lot of people go through life without examining what it is they're actually afraid of or insecure about. And they just have this general feeling of insecurity with maybe some specifics here and there, but they haven't really sat in front of someone else, someone who in a very good way doesn't give a shit. Like it's not live or die for them. They don't fucking know you. So they can be ultra objective about it. They don't give a fuck if you go on a date in 2 weeks and get laid or go on a date in 2 weeks, shit your pants and run away crying in embarrassment. At the end of the day, it's all the same to them. So you can guarantee that they're going to be pretty fucking objective with you because there's no incentive for them to be subjective. And when that person talks to you, they can have you lay out and parse out all of your insecurities. And then you can look at them even written on a piece of paper. That's a big deal. It starts to clear the mind, clear the air so much. You're like, wow, this is what I'm afraid of? Or you're like, wow, yes, this is definitely what I'm afraid of. Thank God it's on a piece of paper because holy shit, this is what I've been circling around my whole goddamn life. Second thing they can do, first thing is just lay out what's going on. The second thing is to point out how many of your insecurities are completely nonsensical. Here's a good one. Combat insecurity. If you happen to be a male and you're 5'3" and 115 pounds, shit happens. You don't know how to fight. You don't have a fucking combat bone in your body. And you're at the club. Let's just say it. Fuck it. We're at the club. And you're intimidated by other men because you think they might be able to beat you up. You're operating under a state of mass delusion. I'll tell you why. One precise thing happens at the club when another guy throws his hands on you. The bouncers show up and they fuck that guy in the ass, ideally in front of everyone, and throw him the fuck out. Bouncers have a zero tolerance policy for fights. Period. It's the only one job they have is to make sure that of all the things that happen at the club, fighting is not one of them. In the club, precisely in that social milieu which you so fear, that is exactly where fighting is completely off the table. And if a guy shoves you, all you got to do is be like, oh, holy shit, dude. Holy fuck, man, that's fucked up. And he's like, yeah, get the fuck out of my face. You're like, okie dokie, get a bouncer, come back, be like, that guy pushed me. And the bouncer will be like, come here. And the guy's like, man, and usually guys that push people in clubs, they're antisocial. So they're really bad with bouncers too. And they'll be like, fuck you get in my face for. Turns out that guy's 380 and snaps him down and the other guy comes and throws him out. So a lot of times, insecurity about combat, male on male, while it's super primal and deep down there, and that earlier point, you can get it up higher by improving your combat abilities. At the end of the day, a psychotherapist can help you, even with all your martial arts training, notwithstanding, be like, look, your consistent fear of other men beating you up is mostly 99% nonsense. Another one is the insecurity around rejection. One of the most beautiful things that ever happened to me was I finally, at some age, got enough balls to really ask a bunch of girls out on dates in a row. Not literally in a row, but it might as well have been. It was like 3 or 4 day period. A bunch of them said yes. A few said no. The ones that said yes, I don't even remember. The ones that said no still stick with me. Why? Because I was expecting the no to be a crushing defeat. And what it felt like was total liberation. I was like, oh, no. All right, I'm just going to take that bitch and wipe her off the fucking slate. See ya. I'ma focus my shit on whatever the fuck else I have going on. And I realized something super deep in that little week-long period. I was completely the same after no. Nothing in me broke. Nobody beat me up. I didn't lose any money. Nobody even embarrassed me. It's just a thing that happened. So a psychotherapist can tell you, look, you really fear rejection. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to you when you get rejected? Try that with someone who really fears rejection. They usually can't tell you. They're like, what? Well, is she going to tell her friends you asked her on a date? Can you imagine how fucking ridiculous her friends are? You're like, oh my God, Connor asked me out. They're like, oh my God, really? Ah. Like, yeah, it was really pathetic. Ah. After a while, okay, that's it. They're over it. And then what? And then you're fucking totally cool. I mean, like, what grade are you in that continues to be a thing? Can you imagine, like, fucking 6 months later, these same girls like, I'd be like, hey, what are you laughing at? Like, you asked what's her name on a date? Like, yeah, bitch, that happened 6 months ago. I didn't ask you out because you're ugly, you're fat, shut up, no tits, and you fucking get out. I'm kidding. Don't do that to people. But you can. I've done that. It's fun. All of a sudden, 3 people are crying and they realize like, oh yeah, it's not cool to make fun of people because we can all do that shit. But FR, a psychotherapist can walk you down those branches without you walking them yourself and goes, where is this going to lead? Because I know you think it's going to lead to disaster. But in reality, it's going to lead to nothing. You're just the same person you were, except you got rejected. No big deal. On to the next. You know how many fucking people are on this world? And guys that have gotten a lot of fucking pussy before, Scott's a video guy, will generally tell you that, like, if you're really stuck on one girl accepting you and she rejects you, consider that the goddamn grace God gave you to save your fucking life and go hit up every other with so many women. There's more women being born in the world ready to fuck than there are right now. The whole thing is this huge, massive. It's like, imagine you took a shot at the deer as your first day hunting and this deer showed up and you're in your scope, bullet went off somewhere, deer runs away. You're like, no! Your hunter buddies are gonna be like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you okay? You're like, I missed. The deer said no. He said no. He rejected me. You're like, do you know how many more deer? Shut up. First of all, the deer will run. Shut up, wipe your tears, lay low, get your scope out. There's going to be 10 more deers here in the fucking next 10 minutes. Watch. And all of a sudden they show up and you click on all of them and it doesn't work. And then one of them you get. Some bitch says yes. And finally, when she says yes, you're on a date, you're going to feel kind of dumb for crying about all those fucking rejections. So it's a huge thing you can do. I'm talking to you right now, so I guess I'm your friend, a junior league unlicensed therapist. But what I'm doing with you right now, talking through the scenarios, a therapist can do 10 fucking trillion times better. And because it's a conversation, not just a monologue that you're hearing on YouTube, you're going to get to talk back and say, no, it's actually really bad. Watch. If I get rejected, blah, blah. And they go, okay, I hear you. Let's thread that needle. And all of a sudden, after a few sessions, you're like, I'm clearly just much more calm about this whole thing because it's not nearly as life or death as I thought. And with cognitive behavioral therapy, if you choose to deploy it, therapists can give you real world tools about what to do. So if you're in a scenario and you feel less than, you're on a date or something, cognitive behavioral therapy is okay. I have a bunch of thoughts in my head. It's a giant swirl. It's no big deal. Everyone has weird thoughts. The only thing that matters is I'm present in the moment. As soon as shit cools down in my head, I can say nothing at all because a pregnant silence is really hot and really tension building, or I can say something that I think is like worthwhile. And that's it. We're on a fucking date. It's 21st century. Everyone's got food. No one's trying to kill anyone. Oh, yeah. So anyway, what kind of movies are you into? And she's like, oh my God, I'm glad you asked. And you're like, oh fuck, I should have said no to this date. Therapy, incredibly effective. Best paired with you trying to improve other facts of your life. All these things work in concert if you choose to employ all of them or some of them. But also friends can do that stuff. You don't need to go to a therapist. With friends, especially if you're all on the same page about how important this kind of stuff can be, it's sometimes really helpful, for example, of many things friends can do for you in this regard, for friends to share regular, genuine compliments with each other. And that can help you loads over time. Some people in this world grow up with parents and friends that just layer in compliments like you wouldn't believe. And a lot of them aren't even true, just people being ultra nice. Like my wife and I tell our dog she's the smartest dog ever, even though she's very stupid compared to most dogs, because we love that bitch. We'll just say whatever to her. Ooh, you're so pretty. She's not pretty. She's an ugly dog. We love her, but she's ugly. We tell her that shit all the time. Luckily, she doesn't understand the fucking English language, but some people have parents like that. We just tell them they just layer in the good stuff. And a lot of the times, those people have much less of a chance of being insecure because all they've heard their whole lives is they're fucking amazing, and they just kind of sunk in and they're just kind of over it. Someone's like, are you feeling insecure? Like, honestly, I don't even know what the fuck that feels like. My parents made me feel it was the greatest goddamn thing since sliced bread, since I could ever fucking remember. And then they had a group of friends with them that also said nice things to them their whole life, and it's just all nice things. There are other people, possibly you, who have heard a precious few nice things, genuine nice things told to them in their lives. Look, we all, like anyone here who's from the third world like I am or whatever, old culture parents typically don't compliment you. They go very great depths to avoid that altogether. A lot of people that struggle with insecurity, especially social insecurity, are Asians. You ever see an Asian parent compliment their kid? It's essentially culturally forbidden. I'm kidding, but barely. So you got the situation where your parents didn't compliment you, maybe teachers and stuff didn't either, and your friends don't have a culture of complimenting. And there are people walking around this world full of value, starving for some kind of someone to be like, hey, you ain't half bad. Here is the thing you're good at. Here's the thing I like about you. Here's why you're valuable to me. And if you have friends that engage in candid, real discussions like that regularly, you may hear some things that hit you so hard and you swirl over them in your mind for hours and days later. It comes up in your dreams. You're thinking about it when you wake up, and it really starts to massage the softer parts, so to speak, of your brain and tell you, hey, you needed to hear that. And not needed in some grand universal spirit energy way. You are benefiting highly from having heard this, because a lot of people need a certain amount of affirmation that you just may not be receiving. You can get it in therapy. You can get it through friendship. And a lot of times friends don't even know to be on this wavelength. So you might have a conversation with your friends and be like, hey guys, maybe one friend at a time, maybe a few, be like, this is going to be the lamest shit you ever hear from me. But I've been like struggling with some insecurity lately. And I know, blah, blah, I'm a pussy, etc. But like, is there any way we could like do like a little exchange of like honest criticism? You can throw that one in there too, because you're used to taking it. Who cares? And honest compliments. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I feel like maybe that would be productive. If they're your real friends after they make fun of you, they're going to be like, yeah, let's fucking do it. And remember, a lot of the times your real friends have so much esteem for you, they would be able to fill you with compliments until the fucking cows came. But they can't wait to say it. It's just not something you say normally. Like, if I had to compliment Scott, the video guy, I could stop right now. I could write you an essay that's 20 pages long about all the ways Scott's great. No problem. Stream of consciousness, no prompting. Why? Because I'm around him all the time. I love the fucking guy. There's so many reasons that he's awesome. Have I told Scott those? Well, only when I break into his house and tie him up and muff him up and you shut up, you take these compliments. Like, I was like, was that 911? You want me to call 911? No. And I turn off the phone. I can see the tears in his eyes, but he gets an erection from that sort of loss of power. Where was I? In any case, it's just in most cases, you don't just go and compliment people. People think that's weird. I know that might not be wrong. But sometimes when you need that shit, it's good to have it. Sometimes a therapist can give you, sometimes a family member, sometimes a friend. And it might be incumbent on you to start. You might be hanging out with your friend, like one of the conversations, it gets real personal. You might want to be like, hey, I got some shit to tell you, man. And they're like, okay, what? And you just start rattling off deep, true, well-explained compliments. They might be like, holy fuck, bro, what's up? And you're like, I don't know, man. I feel like sometimes people need to hear that. I don't want you to go the rest of your life without having heard a goddamn super genuine set of compliments about yourself. Because these things are true about you, and I know they're true. And I don't know if other people tell you this, but I want to tell you. You tell them that, they might say nothing about it. They might be like, oh my God, thanks. Many times, either now or later, they'll be like, hey, by the way, can I tell you some shit about you? You're like, yeah, what's up? You're like, you got a little dick. You little bitch. And they leave. You're like, yeah, it's true. But they might dig into you a little bit and tell you why you're so fucking worthwhile. It's a big, big deal. It's a huge deal, but it doesn't just work once. Friends say some nice things. It's nice. It's nice. And it starts that healing process. But more regularly, once every few months even, those deep convos of mutual exchange of deep and true, never, ever fucking lie ever to people about if they're good at stuff or not. True things can go so goddamn far. Combined with therapy or just by itself, big deal. Big deal. Now, a lot of times, like I've said just now, we don't want to compliment people because we think it's going to go to their heads. But that's actually exactly what we want. There's a two-phase process by which people process lots of complimenting, assuming they have a low sense of security, a lot of insecurity. Secure people deal with compliments really well. They go, oh my God, thank you so much. They already know it's true, but they're super thankful that you're saying it. Easy. People who are insecure often tend to go through a two-phase system. You have to understand the first phase is a little gnarly, but you're going to work through it. First phase is cockiness. Someone who has never really felt worthwhile gets that little taste of goodness, they get cocky. Cockiness is an over-exaggerated sense of self-worth for perception's sake, for that person's own perception and for others. It doesn't correspond to nearly as high of a level of inner strength as you would think, which is why it's cocky, which is why it feels to people like it's fucking lame. Like when someone typically when I arrive at a club, I'll have 3 Lambos, 1 lead Lambo, 1 tail Lambo, and my Lambo. And I'll get out and I have models drive the other Lambos. They get out. Everything's made of fucking Scott. What are those big coats people wear? The
Canada Goose.
Only Canada Goose touches this fucking body. And I'm naked underneath the coat. I'm swagged out. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I roll. And I tell everyone on the red carpet lined up to me, you ain't nothing compared to me, man. I'm the fucking man. Yes, that is cocky. And you're not going to have any friends for long if you keep doing that shit. But cockiness is part of the road to confidence. For a lot of people, they start out with dick. You give them something, they get cocky. You keep giving them more. They keep getting more success. They keep winning fights in their BJJ class. And eventually that cockiness transmutes into confidence. So when you're saying nice things to people, want to compliment people, are like, don't say that to Frank. He's just going to get cocky. Good. Well, not good because Frank Cocky's annoying, but Frank Cocky's way less annoying than Frank, the pathetic piece of shit who thinks he's pathetic all the time. I want to hang around with that. Cocky Frank's at least funny, but I know if we keep feeding Frank that good stuff and he keeps improving his life like he has been, eventually he's going to be confident. And that's where Frank is fucking number one. The more highly someone thinks of themselves, the better. Cocky people just aren't all the way there yet. They're halfway there, so they got to fake the rest, and you can fucking tell. In the short term, yeah, it sucks. In the long term, it breeds confidence. Confidence is cool, calm, and collected. It's quiet. Someone's like, dude, you're amazing. You're like, thank you so much. It's true. Cocky person, you tell them they're amazing. Yeah, of course I am. Fuck you. It always ends up being cocky guys the same thing as Philly, New York, Jersey guy. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? See you in the comments. Number 4. Number 4 way to combat insecurity is deeply accepting yourself for exactly what it is and who it is that you are. Now, this trick is much easier to do if you've already done the 3 things we talked about, which is improving yourself, potentially getting that ass beat and beating some ass, and then having therapy and friend conversations. This is why this is last. It's really, guys, I'm going to give you real talk. I suppose all these are real talks, but this is some shit. This is some shit I haven't had an opportunity to say out in the world, because mostly people care about me for sports science stuff and not this lame shit. But there is this idea through Disney movies and shit that that anyone can just deeply accept themselves kind of any time through a revelationary logical process and then just be good and just be confident forever and have no insecurity. That is highly unlikely. It's possible. It is very unlikely. It is much more likely that you have to build a lot of your competence and a lot of your swag. And then once you've built it to a sufficiently high amount, only then can you deeply accept yourself. Back when I was younger and I wasn't shit, I didn't accomplish shit, I was very uncomfortable with my obvious to myself flaws. Super uncomfortable. I didn't want to deeply accept myself at all, and I didn't. Only when I got to be good at shit was I ready to be like, yeah, I'm bad at all these other things. Because I don't give a fuck. Because I got so much goddamn balls nowadays, I got spare balls for that shit. Whatever. I'm a nuanced person. I'm a complicated person. I don't have to be good at everything. And all my actual friends make fun of me for how much I suck at a bunch of stuff. Cooking, I can't cook. Driving a car, I can do it. But if the car breaks, I have no idea what's going on. Installing software, I'm also terrible at. I'm terrible at a ton of fashion. The fuck? Are you serious? Most people that see me out in the world are probably like, that guy sucks at a lot of stuff. And they're totally right. But for me to tell you with a straight face that I'm totally cool with being not great at everything, I had to get good at stuff first. That sure as shit helped. Now, could I have had like a wormhole straight into self-acceptance at a deep level? I wish. If you got one of those, amazing. Maybe it's a shitload of acid or fucking DMT. Maybe that'll get you there. Unlikely. But it sure as shit helps. And at some point, all of these things like beating up a bunch of people in combat sport, developing your other positive attributes, having lots of deep conversations with friends and therapists, puts you on the precipice where you are ready to do this thing number 4. And this thing number 4 of deeply accepting yourself is something you can never do, but you'll still have a lot of self-confidence from all the other pathways you took. But if you do, and you do it, you could jump up another total different rung of self-confidence. That's the deepest and truest thing you'll ever fucking feel. So this is the last point because it rests on the other 3 points. But it is also the deepest insight that I can give you for sure in this YouTube video. Insecurity is only really one thing. It is a clash between what you want to be or be seen as, hopefully you're not a lying sack of shit, so those two are the same thing, and what you are. And that gives you pain expressed as insecurity. What you have to do, and this is very easy to say, which is why I'm going to say it very easily, tougher to do and actually experience, what you want to do is accept the literal truth, by the way, that's not up for debate, is that you are only what you are. And you can get used to living in that truth and not have to feel out of place at all. How could you feel out of place? You're inside the only body that you've ever had, with the only mind that you ever had, with the only history you have currently. You are exactly what you are and nothing else. Can you change later in the future to take a different trajectory? Of course. But right now, in this very moment, if you have a chance to interact with someone and either feel secure or insecure, why would you ever feel insecure? To feel insecure is to deny the thing that you are. You can feel secure about anything. Real talk? Fuck it. I'll say it. My personal penis size is like decent. Nothing to write home about. I've impressed a bitch or two here and there, and other bitches were like, that's it, huh? And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. When I was in high school, oh my God, if anyone was to ever see my penis, this would just be a real tragedy because who knows, I'll stack up. Don't give a fuck anymore because it's the only thing I got, but what else am I supposed to do? Imagine I get with someone, I'm married now, so imagine, alternate universe. I'm like, it's consensual. I'm not just walking into a grocery store like this. You know what I'm saying? She's taking off her clothes and you take off your clothes and ta-da. And she's like, oh, that's it, huh? Like, yeah, bitch, the fuck you think? It's literally it. What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to tell you? No, it grows a lot bigger. It doesn't. What am I supposed to tell you? Nothing. And if that bitch is an adult, she's going to be like, oh yeah, let's work with what we got. That's all you can do. All you can ever do is work what you have or improve it, which is why, Scott, when are we going to Sweden to get that experimental dick enlargement procedure?
Oh, dude, we're already booked.
Haha, see you in Sweden, fellas. Well, for 2 months we were laying in a hospital bed. But after that, Swedish ladies, Scott loves you. I'll be going back to my wife. Something more realistic than penis size, fine. Let's say you're short. I'm short, I guess, 5'6" or whatever. If you're short, you can absolutely feel bad about it. But why? If you truly and deeply accept, yes, I am short, I am 5'4", whatever. But you just are. So own that shit. By the way, huge benefit. If bitches see that you own your shit, they love that shit. Not all of them do, but a ton of them do. One of my very best friends told me that I'm always like, hey, what about that guy? He's hot. Go have sex with him. She's like, you're an idiot. Fuck that. That guy's awful. That guy's awful. You're awful. And I was like, I guess it's all wrong answer. But one of her things that she considers the hottest possible thing is when a really short guy has way too much confidence. She's like, man, something there. Prince is her ideal man, so to speak. That's a real thing. Do you think Prince, when he got with bitches, was like, no, I'm sorry for being short? What the fuck? They were begging him. He probably had to deny more bitches than he ever met. When they're around Prince, they kneel because they're on a fucking god. Fucking tall, short, doesn't matter. He doesn't care. But you still care. And if you truly and deeply accept yourself, which again, very difficult to do, very easy to say, much easier to do if you've had all that other shit I was talking about, then it's a totally different thing. And you do not have to walk around with excuses in your head as to why you're XYZ. You just own all of it. Did you graduate from college? No. Oh, damn. Yeah. Next question. Okay, so it doesn't feel bad about that. I guess I didn't care. It's an interesting Ebonics term, I don't give a fuck. That stems from exactly that loop of insecurity. When folks that speak Ebonics, black or white, when they say I don't give a fuck, they mean I am not fazed by insecurity. Shit happens, I'm still me. And 99 problems that people have in various cultural and racial segments of the U.S., confidence is not really one of them. You want to learn how to be confident, you go hang around black folks because they own that shit. Not all of them, of course. But that's a big kernel there of just being like, whatever I got, it's real as fuck. And that's just me. And I got nothing else to say about it. That deep acceptance of what is also conveniently, very conveniently, the deep core of Buddhism and Stoicism. So it's not, when you deeply accept yourself for who you are, it's not just some weird side quest you're doing to try to get your fucking manhood up so you can finally get a girlfriend. Sure, it's good for that too. But that takes you to other places, to even deeper places. There are a lot of other places you want to go in your intellectual and in your spiritual life that involve coming down to this idea of I accept what is, period. About me, about the world, about trajectory, about mortality, about risk, about failure, all of it. I accept it all. It's easy to say, very difficult to really feel. But if you can get there, it pays massive dividends way beyond being insecure with bitches. You imagine you like reincarnate the Buddha and you're like, look, I got a real big problem. He's like, yes, inner peace and suffering. You're like, no. Kelsey, I need her to date me. He'd be like, really? That's not that hard, man. Let me get on some other shit. All this stuff helps. It's a really, really big deal. And here's a big deal. Deep self-acceptance troubles people for two reasons. One is it sounds shocking as fuck and people aren't ready for that heat in their own head. Two is a lot of people think if I accept myself, I'll just be someone who doesn't give a fuck anymore and stops trying to improve myself. So I have to think lowly of myself to continue to struggle, to continue to improve. That is the biggest lie you've fucking ever been sold. I don't know about ever. It's a fucking big lie. When you are what you are, you just are what you are. And then you have a fork in the road. You're good at some stuff, bad at some shit. And you can become better, or you're good at some stuff, bad at some shit. You know both of those things to be true, and you can do nothing about it. You can always take that road of becoming better. A lot of people think their desire to be better stems from the pain of not being good enough. But I'm here to tell you that after you heal some of that pain of not being good enough, you do some grand self-acceptance. You start to sit around and go, I want to get better at stuff. And people go, why? You're already great. You're like, no. I'm already great. I want extra credit. I want more. What's wrong with that? If you had a guy on your basketball team, guy in your high school, 6'6", top D1 prospect, already signed at Duke, whatever, NBA bound eventually. And he's getting pussy left and right, the man. You might sit and have a talk with him on the bus and be like, dude, why do you train so hard in basketball? He's going to be like, so I want to become better. And you're like, yeah, but like you got fucking pussy left and right. Everyone thinks you're awesome. Everyone's your friend. Do you feel less than down here? They're like, no, I feel great. Like, so why do you struggle for more? And they're like, because more is better. Because I want to be amazing. I want to make an impact. I have still yet tapped into the limits of human ambition. I have very rarely seen people be like, you know what, this is good enough. Something that, of all people, Alex Hormozy once said is, I was asking him, like, how does it feel to have like $1 gazillion? And he's like, yes. At first it feels amazing, but then you realize you're still in a different world and everyone else you know now is a billionaire and you have 100 million. It just isn't enough and you want more. And even if it does feel like enough, you still want more. So the idea that as soon as you admit your flaws to yourself and accept them, that you're going to stop trying to work on them and improving yourself is, to me, at best unfounded and at worst the opposite of the truth. It is the people precisely that can dig into their flaws, see them objectively and go, you know what, I'm good with this, but I can improve the situation. Thinking about what you're going to make for dinner tonight. You got food at home. Why are you going out to get Chinese food or McDonald's or some fucking burritos or some shit and bring them back home? Because your food at home is not as good. Does having food at home mean you are straight up never going out again? Like, God, I got food. Fuck it. No, you want more. Like, if having food at home was enough to prevent people from going to restaurants to try to get a little better, how the fuck would the modern world have restaurants at its elevating rate? Almost everyone eats out almost all the time now. Why? Everyone's had food for generations at home. Because you want more, you want better. So don't you dare worry about the fact that if you really come to grips with who you really are and accept all of your flaws, I don't mean approve of, I mean accept. You don't have to say, yeah, like, you know, my dick's tiny and barely functional. And that's cool. That's not cool, but it is. And you know, whatever, I'm good with it. Fuck. Does that mean that you stop searching Wikipedia for how to make your dick bigger and more functional? No. But then other people, can you imagine you're on your computer and a girl comes up, she's like, what are you looking for? You're like, I'm looking to how to get my dick bigger and more functional. She'd be like, are you serious? Be like, yep, I want a bigger, more functional dick. And you just straight stare her in the eyes, cold as fuck. She's going to be like, damn, he owns that shit. And then, you know, the usual bullshit start. If you're fucking confident enough, she'd be like, I bet it's totally fine. You're like, yeah, bet you'd like to see it, huh? And she'd be like, mm-hmm. And that's it. You're in the money. If you admit to yourself that you're not perfect, you're not the tallest, you're not the best looking, you're not the richest, you're not the smartest, and that's just true, why be insecure? What is exactly the function of insecurity? As long as you're improving yourself and enjoying your life Insecurity has zero beneficial functions, but the bonus is that it blows to feel. What is exactly the beneficial function of insecurity? I'll tell you what it is. In our ancestral environment, it illustrated other potential sexual mates and allies that you were of whatever worth your brain tacked on as you experienced life. It assessed how you competed against other people and positioned yourself, and it gave you an internal grading scale. You can't help but bleed out of the world with how you talk, how you move, and how you facially express. That's the real value. It's to other people. To you, it has no goddamn value at all, except for making you feel like fucking shit. And with time and work, you can get rid of almost all of it, if not all of it. And that's a huge, huge benefit. And if nothing else works, then you can always turn on the 50s kid character, leave it to Beaver. Oh boy, gee whiz. I use that every now and again. You just like admit flaws. Like, oh, well, I guess I'm just not the most perfect person ever. Oh, well. All right. Say that in your head. See how long you can stay upset at yourself for. It's all right. You're not the most amazing thing that's ever happened. Okay. Really sit with it. Really let it sink in. Really. You good? You good? You're good. Now there's the rest of life to conquer and to have fun with and do amazing things with. Can you imagine Prince like on his fifth bitch of the, what do you think, Scott? Day or hour? Minute? Yeah. Prince got out of hand. Who knows? And like, someone in the room, another bitch, as she's gasping for air after being fucking annihilated by him, she's like, you're still not the best at this. He'd be like, all right, who's the best? She's like, Will Chamberlain. Like, oh, dope. Hey, by the way, I just unlocked the door for you. Feel free to run to Wilt anytime you want. I got 80 other bitches lined up. Who cares? Who cares? Being the best or whatever is insanely overrated. Living happily in your own life, owning who you are, and working to improve yourself so that one day you can be better is the only logically correct answer to this problem. Thus, insecurity and the deep feelings of it are in almost every way totally pointless for you to experience, and negative and nasty. This taking yourself to task and getting deep and true with your shit is a huge deal, and it takes practice and years of practice in your own head. But it can clear out insecurity like you would not believe. It's basically a giant who gives a shit to the whole goddamn hierarchy bullshit to begin with. And it's not teenager, I don't care about this stupid hierarchy, bitch, you care. You just put on a different kind of makeup, now goth makeup instead of regular girl makeup. You still climbing another fucking hierarchical branch, it's just not the main one. You give a shit. And you care about what the popular thing people think about you too. I'm talking about really not giving a shit. And if someone makes fun of you, God forbid, you own all the shit they say is truth and then pile on yourself. Eminem 8 Mile style. And that shit is kind of a no-fail formula. Like someone, I don't know, if you're getting bullied at school, somebody's like, hey, what's up, Four Eyes? You're like, yes, I have glasses. What else you got? Let me help you out. My parents aren't that rich. My clothes look raggedy. Sometimes I have trouble doing my homework. What else you got? At some point, they're going to be like, oh, Jesus Christ, kid. I didn't want to just shit on you. Or they'll be like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. You're like, you know what? I own that shit. What are they supposed to do after that? They punch you in the face. But remember, you've been doing jujitsu, so you just pop back up and be like, I love it. Give me more blood. And they're like, okay. I'm going to see myself out. Or they beat you up successfully. You cry. You embarrass yourself. You come back to school the next day. Be like, oh yeah, it was that kid that cried. Yep, I sure shit did. You guys remember me bawling my eyes out because I got beat up? And they're like, oh. Right. This is not a person that's just going to take the low end. This is not a person that's going to sink. This is a person, everything that happens to them, like, yep, that shit happened. And it illustrated that I'm not as good as I thought I was. Isn't that crazy, fellas? You actually live that energy, it's going to change the living fuck out of you. It's not going to happen instantly. It's something you own over and over and over. This can be tough to do for a few reasons. One, in the modern world, maybe because there's so many perfect people in your social media that you think if you're remotely flawed in any capacity, clearly you're not like the rest of the world who seem to be flawless. But there are a couple of things we can say on that. One is that some people in your socials, because remember you follow them because of who they were, because they are exceptional, they really are amazing. And they really are someone to look up to and be inspired by. You know, like over time with your improvements, you'll be more like them. Like I look at The Rock's Instagram, I'm like, God damn, that's a real man. All of us are just shit copies of The Rock at the end of the day. But he's The Rock. He's the fucking man. No wonder. It's just better. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't have to make you insecure. You know, if you see someone at the gym flexing 22-inch arms, you could be like, oh my God, you're amazing. Versus being like, oh my God, that's not me. Oh my God, my arms are so small. You can be totally happy with other people being their fucking full swag. But don't take that feeling too far, because social media is a giant illusion machine. And the things you see on social media are very well architected and caricatured and positioned to make people look as good as they can. I mean, unless you follow me on social media, it's mostly just me throwing up and looking pathetic, and throwing up some more. Many people that are rich, that are famous, that are popular, have stuff going on up there you don't want a single slice of. They sometimes lack the only one thing that really matters in the end, inner peace. They don't have it. You can have millions of dollars. You can have adoring fans. You can have all the women in the world. And before you fall asleep every night, you think of how you'd rather be anyone else that's capable of experiencing positive emotions, because you can't. You don't post about that shit on social media. Oh yeah, sometimes you throw your titties up and you make a post about how you've been dealing with mental health issues and people like the post because of your titties. Sure, you can do that. But after you bake that post and you see all the likes, and then you start reading the comments and no one says anything about mental health issues except for your two bestie girlfriends, and everyone else on there is like, oh man, your titties, I'd love to fuck you. Hey, here's my number. Please DM me. You're like, oh, no one cares about me. Why do you guys think a bunch of starlets and shit take a ton of pills and cash out? A lot of people are not having a good time in their head, and you never, ever, ever fucking know what someone's doing in their own head. So when you scroll on social media, there's two things. One, if people are truly amazing, to be like, oh my God, they're amazing. I love it. There's no need for me to feel insecure about this. And two, if they look amazing, they might not be amazing. And you, with all you're not so attractive and your clothes kind of look like shit. When you're playing video games with your friends and you're joshing around, you're having the time of your life. You're having positive affect. And that popular ass person on social media may not be able to experience that. Anything they do is for the gram. And when they do things that look fun, they fake the faces. It looks fun to them, but they just want to kill themselves the entire fucking time that they're alive. They've just been delaying it. You never can quite tell. So don't over-index on social media being like, oh man, everyone's perfect and I'm the only one without. Some people are damn close to perfect, and fuck them, amazing, they're angels. And the other people are fucking liars. And sooner or later, they end up making the big post of like, fuck man, one girl is following. She's like, she had a band on still. She's like, just got out of the psychiatric ward. And I was like, oh, huh? You go back scrolling the posts that you were jealous of and you're like, this jealousy was built on a lie. Never can tell. So don't take that too seriously. Lastly, the future of insecurity. It is my full belief and semi-prediction that in the next, 15 to 25 years, long end, I think, our ability to modify our DNA and modify our physical systems through cybernetics. Surgery is already getting well on the way. The average wealthy Persian girl looks a little different at age 35 than she did at age 18 before she was legally allowed to have surgery. It usually looks like a fucking dime at 35, but at 18, you were like, oh, yeah, we all grew up at some point. You look cool, I guess. Not to single out Persians, you guys are flawless angels. But it's already a thing that people make themselves more beautiful, but it's going to exponentially skyrocket the fuck out of here. Can you imagine a world when we can change your DNA, not for how you think, not for how you feel, but how you look? You get the, whatever that future viral delivery system is, and every day you wake up, your nose looks a little different, your eyes look a little different. Like, what the fuck? 2 months later, you look like fucking Orlando Bloom or something else flawless and beautiful that I swear to God, I'm still straight for. And that's just the new you. So 15, 20, 25 years from now, I have a high degree of confidence you will eventually be able to pay a nominal amount of money to become much better looking, perhaps infinitely so, taller, shorter, bigger, smaller, leaner, whatever it is you want, smarter, cooler, funnier. That's all genetic, by the way, or most of it is. And Also, you can have robot bodies, so who gives a shit? Like, you can't really be intimidated by people that are human if you have a fucking robot body. I don't know how that works. Be like, talk that shit. I'm going to rip your fucking legs off and throw them into the moon. Any case, I don't know if that's on the horizon for us. Certainly, it will still be illegal to hurt people. In any case, we are all flawed. We're all flawed. We are slowly, and in some number of years, not so slowly, going to become significantly less flawed. If you actually look at pictures of people today compared to pictures of people in like the 1880s, people looked worse back then. How? In every conceivable way. They were dirtier, they were uglier, they were less happy, they had less cool shit to wear and more uncertainty in their head than you. Nowadays, you look at people in the modern time, like, yeah, everyone's good looking. People look younger, they're freer, they're happier, they got so much going on. That trend is accelerating exponentially. So what I'm trying to say is in 20 plus years, you won't have anything to be insecure about because the genomics will wipe the slate clean of that shit. And in the meantime, all you have is the meantime. And in the meantime, because you know this is going to be a solved problem eventually, and I bet my professional reputation that it will, unless robots kill us all or something, which is whatever. You just have an interim period where you got to hang in and just do the best with what you have in 3 simple steps. 1, owning your current state as much as you can. This is me with all of my good stuff, with all of my bad stuff. This is just me. 2 is being okay with your current state, even if it never improves. You say, even if I never improve, I can live with this. I'm okay here. And then number 3 is calmly and slowly and intelligently and meticulously working to improve your current state. There's all this nonsense back there in your brain and your history as a person. Failures and almost has and insecurities and doubts and people made fun of you. And all you are today is just the person that you are, period. And in your own way, kind of the most perfect you could be. What you are in the future is this person that you are today. Fuck all that noise from before in your life. It just literally doesn't matter. It's the person you are today multiplied by how diligently you improve yourself over time. Whether that improvement is to your physical self or to your mental self, there's no wrong answers. So if you got some insecurity, think about all the stuff. Shoot me a couple questions in the comments below. And remember that you can build your way out of insecurity. And once you've begun and well are on the building, you can start to use the evidence of your own increasing ability and aptitude as therapy for yourself, so that not only are you becoming objectively more capable, you're becoming subjectively more realizing of the fact that, well, yeah, you got some shit going for you. And at some point, you get so much swag, you own all your dumb shit and your negatives. And by the way, if you guys are still curious to see my not so impressive genitals, we have an OnlyFans for that reason. And I'll see you guys there. Peace.